There's a photograph from 1955. Two young stars sitting together on a Texas film set. She's 23, he's 24. She's already a legend. He's about to become one. Elizabeth Taylor and James Dean. They're laughing in the photograph, her head thrown back, his eyes bright. They look like they've known each other forever. They hadn't. They'd only just met 6 weeks earlier. But in those 6 weeks, something extraordinary happened. A friendship so deep, so genuine, so rare in Hollywood that when he died 4 months later, she never fully recovered. This is their story. The friendship Hollywood tried to hide, the bond that changed both their lives, and the loss that haunted Elizabeth Taylor for the next 50 years. June 3, 1955. Marfa, Texas. Elizabeth Taylor steps out of a black Cadillac into the scorching desert heat. 110 degrees, dust everywhere, not a tree in sight. This godforsaken corner of West Texas, where director George Stevens has decided to film Giant. Elizabeth is not happy. She's been a movie star since she was 12 years old. National Velvet, Father of the Bride, A Place in the Sun. She's married to Michael Wilding, a British actor 20 years her older. She has 2 small sons. She's exhausted. And now she has to spend 4 months in Texas playing a ranch wife in a 3-hour epic about oil and cattle. Stevens introduces her to the cast. Rock Hudson. He's nice, professional, safe. They'll become lifelong friends. Then Stevens says, "And this is James Dean. He's playing Jet Rink." Elizabeth turns, sees a young man standing in the shadow of the set. Dirty jeans, white t-shirt, disheveled hair. He doesn't move, doesn't smile, just stares at her with these intense, searching eyes. "Hello," Elizabeth says, extending her hand. Dean looks at her hand like it's a foreign object, then looks back at her face, studies her, like he's trying to see through her, into her. Finally, he speaks. "You're shorter than I expected." Elizabeth blinks. Nobody talks to Elizabeth Taylor like that. Nobody. She laughs. A real laugh. Not the practiced Hollywood laugh, a genuine, surprised laugh. "And you're ruder than I expected," she shoots back. Dean's face breaks into a grin. A real grin. And just like that, the wall comes down. They become inseparable. It happens fast. Too fast for either of them to understand. One day they're strangers. The next day, they're finishing each other's sentences. Between takes, Dean follows Elizabeth around the set like a lost puppy. She doesn't mind. There's something about him. Something raw, honest, unguarded. He tells her about his mother, how she died when he was 9, how his father gave him away, how he's been alone ever since. Elizabeth listens, really listens, because she understands loneliness. She's been working since she was a child. She's been married, divorced, married again. She has everything, but she's lonely too. "You know what your problem is?" Dean says one afternoon. They're sitting in her trailer, hiding from the heat. "You're playing a part even when the cameras aren't rolling." "What do you mean?" "Elizabeth Taylor, movie star, perfect wife, perfect mother, perfect everything. But who are you really, when nobody's watching?" The question hits her like a slap, because he's right. She's been playing Elizabeth Taylor for so long, she's forgotten who she actually is. "I don't know," she admits quietly. "Then figure it out," Dean says, "before it's too late." They talk for hours, about acting, about fame, about the price they've both paid for success, about the loneliness of being watched all the time but never truly seen. Dean tells her about his racing, the Porsche he just bought, how he feels alive when he's going 130 miles per hour with nothing between him and death but his own reflexes. "That's insane," Elizabeth says. "Maybe." Dean shrugs. "But at least it's real. At least it's mine." Elizabeth wants to argue, wants to tell him he's being reckless, self-destructive, but she can't, because she envies him, envies his freedom, his refusal to be careful, his determination to live on his own terms. "You're going to break your neck in that car," she says instead. Dean smiles, a sad smile. "Probably." George Stevens watches their friendship with growing concern. They're too close, too comfortable. The tabloids will have a field day if they catch wind of this. Elizabeth is married. Dean has a reputation. This could become a scandal. He pulls Elizabeth aside. "Be careful with Dean," Stevens warns. "He's not stable, he's not safe, and he's going to get himself killed." "He's my friend," Elizabeth says simply. "He's trouble." "Maybe that's what I need." Stevens can't argue with that, because he's seen the change in her. On set, Elizabeth has always been professional, competent, but distant, going through the motions. Now she's alive, present, real, and it's all because of James Dean. Their scenes together crackle with energy. Elizabeth plays Leslie, the ranch owner's wife. Dean plays Jet Rink, the poor ranch hand who strikes oil and becomes rich, but never quite belongs. In one scene, Jet confesses his love for Leslie. It's not in the script, it's real, raw. Dean pours everything into it, all his loneliness, all his longing, all his desperate need to be seen. Elizabeth responds in kind. Her eyes fill with tears, not actress tears, real tears. Because in that moment, she's not playing Leslie. She's responding to Jimmy, to his pain, to his beautiful broken soul. Stevens yells cut. The crew is silent. Even the hardened technicians are moved. Dean and Elizabeth stand there, still in character, still connected. Then Dean turns and walks away. Elizabeth watches him go, knows something has shifted, something profound. That night, Elizabeth knocks on Dean's hotel room door. He opens it, looks surprised. "I couldn't sleep," she says. "Me neither." They sit on his balcony, drink whiskey, watch the Texas stars, talk about everything and nothing. "What are you so afraid of?" Elizabeth asks. Dean is quiet for a long time. Then, "Being forgotten, dying before I've really lived, ending up like my mother, gone, erased, like I never mattered." "You matter," Elizabeth says fiercely. "You matter so much." Dean looks at her, really looks at her. "So do you, Elizabeth. Don't let them make you forget that." They sit in silence. Two young stars, both trapped, both searching, both finding something in each other they didn't know they needed. Friendship. Real, honest, unguarded friendship. July 1955. The Texas heat is unbearable. Tempers are short. Everyone is miserable except Elizabeth and Dean. They've created their own world, their own language. They play pranks on the crew, race motorcycles through the desert, stay up all night talking about dreams and fears and what comes after fame. Rock Hudson watches them with a mixture of amusement and concern. "You two are like teenagers," he says. "Maybe we're finally getting to be the teenagers we never were," Elizabeth responds. She's right. Dean never had a normal childhood. Neither did Elizabeth. They were both working, both performing, both learning to be commodities instead of people. Now, in the middle of nowhere, away from Hollywood's watchful eyes, they get to just be. One afternoon, they drive out to an abandoned ranch. Elizabeth wants to see if she can really ride a horse. Not the careful studio riding, real riding. Dean teaches her, patient, gentle, different from the intense, moody actor everyone else sees. "You're good at this," Elizabeth says. "Grew up on a farm. Horses were my friends when people weren't." "Were you lonely?" "Always." "Me too." They look at each other, understanding passing between them without words. This is why they connected so fast. They recognized each other. Two lonely souls who learned to perform happiness while dying inside. Elizabeth's horse suddenly bolts. She holds on but loses her balance. Dean races after her. catches up, reaches out and grabs her horse's reins, brings both horses to a stop. Elizabeth is shaking, adrenaline, fear, excitement. "You okay?" Dean asks. "That was terrifying. That was living." Elizabeth starts laughing, can't stop, and Dean laughs too. Two people covered in dust miles from anywhere, laughing like children. Rock Hudson later said he'd never seen Elizabeth so happy, so free, so herself. August 1955. Filming wraps. Time to leave Texas. Return to Hollywood. Return to real life. Elizabeth doesn't want to go. Doesn't want this bubble to burst. Doesn't want to lose this friendship, this connection, this person who sees her. The last night they sit together on the hotel steps. Neither wants to say goodbye. "We'll see each other in LA," Elizabeth says. But it sounds hollow. They both know it won't be the same. "Elizabeth," Dean says quietly, "thank you." "For what?" "For being real with me. For not treating me like I'm crazy. For..." He trails off, searching for words. "For being my friend." Elizabeth takes his hand. "You're my friend too, Jimmy. My real friend. Don't forget that." "I won't." But there's something in his voice. Something final, like he's saying goodbye forever. "Jimmy?" Elizabeth feels a chill despite the warm night. "You're scaring me." "I'm always scared," he admits. "Scared I'll wake up, and this will all be gone. The fame, the movies, everything. Scared I'll go back to being that lonely kid on the farm who didn't matter." "You matter," Elizabeth says again. "You'll always matter." Dean smiles, but it doesn't reach his eyes. "I hope you're right." They say goodbye. Dean drives back to Los Angeles in his new Porsche. The silver one. The one everyone's been warning him about. Elizabeth flies home with Rock Hudson. She's quiet the whole flight, thinking about Jimmy, about that strange goodbye, about the sadness in his eyes. "You really care about him," Rock observes. "I love him," Elizabeth says simply. "Not like that. But I love him. He's important. He's reckless. I know. He's going to get himself killed." "I know that too." September 1955. Elizabeth is back in Hollywood, back to being Mrs. Michael Wilding, back to photo shoots and premieres and pretending to be happy. She calls Dean several times. He's racing, always racing, preparing for a competition in Salinas, obsessed with his Porsche. "Be careful," Elizabeth begs him. "Stop worrying," Dean laughs. "I'm always careful." But he's not careful. He's never been careful. That's part of who he is, part of what makes him real. September 30th, 1955. Elizabeth is at home with her children. It's a Friday afternoon. She's thinking about dinner, about the weekend, about nothing important. The phone rings. She answers without thinking. It's George Stevens. He's crying. George Stevens never cries. "Elizabeth," he says, "Jimmy's dead." The world stops. What? Car crash. Highway 466. He died instantly. Elizabeth drops the phone. Can't breathe. Can't think. Can't process what she's just heard. Jimmy. Her Jimmy. Her friend. Her real friend. Gone. She falls to the floor, screaming. Her husband rushes in, tries to comfort her, but she can't be comforted, because a piece of her died on that highway too. The funeral is in Indiana. Elizabeth wants to go, needs to go, but Michael forbids it. "It'll look improper," he says. "You're a married woman. People will talk." "I don't care what people think," Elizabeth shouts. "He was my friend." "No, you're not going." So Elizabeth Taylor, movie star, stays home, while James Dean is buried, while her friend is put in the ground, while the only person who really saw her is erased. She watches the news coverage, sees the crowds at the funeral, thousands of people crying for someone they never knew, someone they only knew from the screen. But they didn't know him. They didn't know his laugh, his sadness, his brilliant, beautiful, broken soul. She knew him. And now, he's gone. October 1955. Rebel Without a Cause premieres. Elizabeth forces herself to see it, sits in the dark theater, watches Jimmy on screen. He's magnificent, vulnerable, real, everything she knew he was, everything the world should have seen. But it's torture. Because he's there, right there, so alive, so present, and she can't talk to him, can't call him, can't say you were right, you mattered, you always mattered. She leaves before the credits roll, can't stay, can't watch people applaud while her heart is breaking. Years pass. Elizabeth's marriage to Michael Wilding ends. She marries Mike Todd. He dies in a plane crash. She marries Eddie Fisher. That ends too. She marries Richard Burton. Twice. She becomes one of the biggest stars in the world. Cleopatra. Who's Afraid of Virginia Woolf? Academy Awards, fame, fortune, everything. But she never forgets James Dean, never stops missing him, never stops wondering what he would have become, what they might have shared if he'd lived. In interviews, she rarely talks about him. It's too painful, too personal, too real. But once, in 1974, a journalist asks about her time filming Giant. Elizabeth is quiet for a long moment. Then, Jimmy Dean was the most honest person I ever met. He didn't know how to lie, didn't know how to be anything but himself, and Hollywood killed him for it. What do you mean? We tell people to be real, to be authentic. But when someone actually is, we can't handle it. We punish them, push them away, make them feel crazy for feeling things deeply. Jimmy felt everything deeply, and it destroyed him. Do you think about him? Every day, Elizabeth says quietly. Every single day. 1980s. Elizabeth is in her 50s now. Still beautiful, still famous, but different, harder. The softness Dean once saw in her has been buried under years of marriages and divorces and tabloid scandals. But sometimes, late at night, she takes out a photograph. The one from the Giant set, her and Jimmy laughing. So young, so alive, so unaware that in 4 months he'd be gone forever. She traces his face with her finger, remembers his voice, his laugh, the way he saw through all her defenses straight to her heart. I miss you, she whispers to the photograph. I miss you so much. 1990s. Elizabeth is asked to participate in a documentary about James Dean. She agrees. First time she's ever agreed to talk about him publicly. On camera, she tells stories. The good ones, the funny ones, the safe ones. But her eyes tell a different story. A story of loss, of grief, of a friendship that was cut short before it could fully bloom. What do you think he'd be today if he'd lived? The interviewer asks. Elizabeth considers this. He'd be himself. That's all he ever wanted. To be himself without apology. Whether Hollywood liked it or not. Do you think he'd still be acting? Maybe. Or maybe he'd have become a director or quit entirely. With Jimmy, you never knew. He was unpredictable. That's what made him special. What would you say to him if you could see him one more time? Elizabeth's eyes fill with tears. She takes a moment. Then, I'd tell him he was right. About everything. About being real. About living on your own terms. About not wasting time pretending to be something you're not. I'd tell him I'm sorry I didn't go to his funeral. That I let my husband control me. That I was a coward. She pauses, wipes her eyes. And I'd tell him he mattered. That he changed me. That knowing him, even for just a few months, was one of the greatest gifts of my life. March 23, 2011. Elizabeth Taylor dies at Cedars-Sinai Medical Center in Los Angeles. She's 79 years old. She's survived 8 marriages, cancer, a brain tumor, a lifetime in the spotlight. Her children go through her belongings, find boxes of photographs, letters, memories from 70 years of life. In one box, carefully preserved, they find a photograph, worn at the edges from being handled so many times. A young woman and a young man on a film set in Texas, laughing, alive, friends. On the back, in Elizabeth's handwriting, Jimmy, 1955, the friend who saw me. They bury Elizabeth at Forest Lawn Memorial Park in Glendale. The funeral is private, family only, the way she wanted it. But those who knew her well, those who really knew her,